The chip-stealing seagull, understanding the habituation behaviour in the common silver gull, Croisocephalus novahollandi. The silver gull, more commonly known as the seagull, is the most common water bird in Australia. It is usually spotted around coastal areas with high urbanisation and lives off a diet of fish, insects, worm and crustaceans. However, will also frequently consume food scraps as a result of urbanisation. Silver gull populations have increased rapidly alongside urbanisation since the 1950s, and the gulls have developed particular habituation behaviours when being fed by humans. The concept of habituation can be used to understand why the silver gull shows increased tolerance to human exposure. However, this increase in tolerance can lead to strong aggressive, opportunistic behaviours, such as swooping for food. To observe this type of behaviour, an experiment was performed whereby chips were used in areas of high and low human populations to examine the difference in adaptive behaviours of taking the chip and response time. This experiment explores Tinbergen's theory of causation and function. The experiment tested 3 questions. Will silver gulls retrieve a chip from close proximity to a human quicker in sites more populated with humans than sites less populated by humans? At each site, will silver gulls become more habituated to retrieving a hot chip over time as more replicates are conducted with the same flock of gulls? And finally, is there any pattern in the type of behaviour of gulls whilst approaching to retrieve the chip between busy sites and quiet sites? The aim of this experiment is to understand behavioural changes in the common silver gull as a result of human proximity and interaction. Silver gulls located in highly populated areas, we hypothesize, such as in an urban setting with high foot traffic and rubbish food scraps, will display behavioural changes towards humans to appear unafraid, approaching more readily for food, getting closer to humans with a food reward. We also hypothesize that silver gulls in less populated areas who rely more on natural food sources of food as opposed to human scraps will display a higher reluctance to approach a human for food and may not approach at all, for the fear trumps the hunger. This experiment is looking at a contemporary object of study and both the proximate and ultimate causes of the behaviour. The object of the study is the common silver gull, and the aim is to understand both the mechanism, the causation, and the adaptive value, the function of the learning behaviour developed in gulls in highly populated environments, learning in the form of desensitization towards humans for food-related reward. This experiment will look at how into the adaptive value of the behaviour, how it increases the reproductive success of the gulls, how a change in reaction towards human has increased their chance of finding food, how that could flow on to boost the chance of the individual becoming stronger and having a higher reproductive success rate. The experiment utilised a single-factor, 2-level nested design in the field, and 4 sites in Sydney with silver gull populations were used. 2 sites considered busy and 2 sites considered quiet. A busy location was defined as a location with dense human population frequented by humans with a large seagull presence. For this, we used Darling Harbour and Sydney fish markets. A quiet location was defined as a location with low density human populations where there is a smaller seagull presence. For this, we used the Royal Botanical Gardens in Sydney and Clareville Beach. The experiment was set out as displayed, with the chip approximately 5 centimetres cubed, placed in the middle of a circle with a 1 metre radius. The human sat within the circle, 30 centimetres from the chip. The interaction between the seagull chip and human was then recorded via a video camera. The experiment was repeated twice, then the circle was moved 3 metres away from the spot and repeated. This was done 5 times to get 10 samples from each location. Footage from each site was analysed twice in Boris using 2 different ethograms. The first to analyse their behaviour during their approach to the chip, including walking, running, flying and vigilance in the exclusion matrix as shown. The second ethogram was used to measure the time taken to retrieve the chip from a set distance with a more simplified ethogram as shown that measures the time the silver gulls entered the circle and the time it retrieved the chip. In some cases, multiple gulls were present in the footage, so only the behaviour of the gulls that retrieved the chip was focused on. After Boris analysis was complete, the data was analysed in SPSS. data was square root transformed to conform to assumptions of homoscedasticity, and an ANOVA was completed. We analysed the time it took for the seagull to get from the edge of the circle to the chip. The mean time for busy places was 1.51 seconds, while the mean time of the quiet places was 3.54 seconds, which was significantly higher with a p-value of 0.004. As hypothesized, silver gulls did retrieve the chip significantly quicker at sites more populated by humans. On average, the chip was retrieved 57% quicker at busy sites compared to quiet sites. These results suggest silver gulls are more habituated to humans in more populated areas. This graph shows the individual response times for each sample. Although the times are variable, overall it displays that the two busy locations, Sydney Fish Markets and Darling Harbour, have shorter response times than the two quiet locations. It does display that there's no significant pattern of habituation by silver gulls over the replicate time, suggesting that any habituation to humans was prior to the experiment or would have to occur over a longer period of time. The time budget for the busy sites shows a high amount of running and flying, which leads to a quicker chip retrieving time. This may be related to intraspecific competition with other gulls, but it does suggest that the gulls are more confident around humans with less hesitation to approach the chip. The time budgets for the quiet sites show a high amount of walking and vigilance, leading to a slower chip retrieval time, due to a lack of confidence and tolerance of humans. However, it could also be due to the lack of competition with other gulls at quieter sites and less need to beat others to the food source. It was noted that busy sites tend to have more gulls present and other bird species, including the Australian white ibis and the rock dove, that are also scavengers for similar food types, including chips, when compared to quieter sites. Further research is required to determine if it is the human population and the gull's habituation to humans affecting the chip retrieval time, or if it is affected by the intraspecific and interspecific competition at busy sites. Dominant silver gulls are known to develop feeding rights over others in areas where food is anticipated and less in areas of opportunistic feeding. The busy sites used in this experiment are areas known to silver gulls as feeding hotspots, so the chip may be quickly retrieved by a dominant gull. At the quieter sites, the feeding may be more opportunistic and no dominant gull established, so there is hesitation between the gulls. Like any ecological field experiment, there are limitations and variables that cannot be controlled. The seagulls can fly in between busy and quiet places, meaning that even if we are experimenting in a quiet place, the seagulls could still be habituated highly to humans. Seagulls in Sydney will most likely all be habituated to humans because it is such a densely populated area. It would have been better to do an experiment between seagulls in Sydney and seagulls in an area not populated by humans, such as a breeding island, or an experiment between seagulls that are domesticated and wild. There was no control test to see if the string circle had any effect on the seagull's approach, and there was no tagging within the experiment to observe whether it was the same seagull or a different seagull taking the chip in each sample at the same location. Due to time and cost restraints, the experiment was limited. A longer time frame and more science may have provided a better picture on seagull behaviour. From this study, we can conclude that silver gulls have become more habituated to humans in more populated areas. The more populated areas provide more food for the gulls, so it is beneficial that they become less responsive and more tolerant of humans, as it will increase food availability. It has been shown that this habituation of gulls to humans in urban environments has affected the development through an increase in availability of food, leading to an increase in their fitness and their populations over the last 60 years.